All right. Let's go ahead and start this transmission. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your AstroShaman Pernell Bobby. We are here generating a world of harmony, an economy of harmony, okay? Leveraging human design and astrology. But as a part of that, we're always needing to come back to the divine masculine and the divine feminine. I've spoke about this plenty of times. Until we integrate the divine masculine and feminine within myself, even me as a guy, especially the divine feminine, honestly, we're going to all go through some sort of suffering somehow, some way, you know. So this is a discussion of clarity around what is divine masculine energy, what is divine feminine energy, how do we unite the two, how do we switch between and learn how to flow between the divine masculine, between the divine feminine, how do we work with the wounds, but then even going beyond the wounds and start actually aligning with the higher frequencies of what this means and what this can do. So I brought in two guests. All right, they're backstage right now, so definitely stay tuned. Hit the thumbs up. While I was on my travels, I met a couple people that were like, "Oh my God, I really want to know more about this divine masculine and feminine." So if you're watching this on replay, I want to say thank you for being here. If you're watching this live with us, get engaged, ask questions in the comments, in the chats. All right. And I just want to say thank you for everyone being here. This is a truly passionate topic for me. I've ran multiple retreats on the divine feminine, on the divine masculine. And this is just one more time where we can bring in some other minds, some other guests, some other perspectives, being the great connector, Neeraj Pardesi, as well as Fabrice Wealth, checking in out of Paris. This is going to be absolutely phenomenal. So let me go ahead and add my guest in. All right. I see people already up in the chats. I'm going to go number one, number two, and I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. And I want to ask you, gentlemen, off the rip, one by one, you know, what got you engaged in this divine masculine, divine feminine talk? Why does it matter for you? And what do you feel like your personal mission is along this journey?
Epic, epic. If you want to start, Neeraj, I might let you go first on that one.
Sure. What's up, everybody, again? My name's Neeraj Pardesi, the Great Connector. Thanks for having me on, Pernell, Bobby, my good friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel good, this big old screen just for me. So, masculine and feminine is an important topic. We're always here talking about these things because it's literally the foundation of creation. Okay, you got positive and negative, you got left and right, you got up and down, you have duality, yin and yang. It's masculine and it's feminine. And we even have that masculine, feminine, everything in reality. Every species has male and female. There's a reason for this. And to understand the relationship between these two things as the primordial building blocks for reality is to understand how things go together. It's like putting puzzle pieces together. And if life is one big puzzle of multiple pieces, if you know how those puzzle pieces fit together, then you can understand how to play the game right and have more fun and know what's going on as it's happening. So that's why
Absolutely,
we do this.
absolutely. So you know, I know you two work together, right? And you're always bringing in advice never heard before, right? And I saw recently Fabrice, and maybe he can elaborate on this. He put up a post about leading in vulnerability, and as a part of that, like as a coach, really speaking in a sense about our personal pain. So like, if you feel like sharing, before we pass it to Fabrice, what personal pain, you know, as a vulnerable leader, brought you into the discussion of divine masculine and divine feminine? What makes you want to talk about this? What makes you energetically align with this?
Hmm.
And you know what? I want to switch it over to Fabrice for now, and I want you to just let that sink and let that marinate. And then Fabrice, from now, go ahead, take a moment to introduce yourself and where this, you know, this paradigm really shifted into your life.
First of all, man, thank you for making that one up today. It's a pleasure to be here. And
Absolutely.
when it comes to, yeah, the divine masculine, feminine, I think first of all, without going too fancy into techniques and wisdom and all of that, it's like who doesn't like to separate things into like those kind of two categories? I think we've all seen how viral those posts they go on IG on when people they say how this is the masculine path and the feminine path. And I think like in all of us is that part of us that actually just likes to see which actually belongs to which. And that's what actually got me really passionate about that. You mentioned the post that I've made about leadership
Mm,
and vulnerability. Um, I like personally to see that thing as like not one way or the other. And I think very often when it comes to us guys out of an insecurity, we try to be only masculine.
mm,
And when it comes to the feminine, the opposites. But actually, I like to see it, especially for men, because that's from the place in which I can express myself. Is that true divine masculinity, and we might dive deeper into that later, is actually truly the masculine integrating his inner feminine to actually his core that is masculine, which actually makes it not wounded, but actually divine.
Absolutely.
That would be
Absolutely.
my overall take on that. But man,
The
we can,
overall, yeah, absolutely. No,
yes,
I
we
feel
can
that.
always
I
go
feel that
deep.
1,000%. It's always about the integration. So, you know, what are these? So, what are these pain points for us in a sense? Like, what brought us to the realization that we were never, in a sense, wounded? Like we've always been complete. We've always been whole. There's this narrative I've been seeing and hearing a lot where, you know, we all have to go through this healing journey. And what I'm really like feeling more and more passionate about is like, there's no healing in a sense to be done, rather than just putting ourselves more in a witness consciousness and essentially stop getting in our way, right? Like stop prioritizing some sort of conditioning from somebody who's hurt us or this and that, and just realize that like we're witnessing, if we choose consciously, this human experience that is just so absolutely beautiful. It's so gorgeous when we can find where's the benefit of detachment and how to detach, you know, in a sense, an alignment, like how to detach without, you know, being cold, without being on and off. And there's a hot cold narrative, you know, I'm coming to me, pushing your way. Some people might discover this or claim this as like the twin flame chaser runner dynamic. And it's like, there's this bigger story of why that is bringing us, why these moments are bringing us closer to the fact that we're really one. You know, we have Fabrice checking in at Paris, and I'm here in Mexico, and Neeraj
If
is
I
there in
just,
California. Go ahead.
brother, if I just add one thing, actually,
Please do. Please
I'm
do.
not from Paris, from
No.
Geneva.
I don't believe you're from Paris. I'm just saying you're checking in from Paris. I don't believe you're from Paris.
Not
Where are you
even,
from?
actually, around Geneva. But you know, it's like we had such a struggle to find the time zone that I was like, if I even had to mention that I was not from Paris, I would just make it harder. But yeah, I live around Geneva.
Geneva.
Same
Switzerland.
time zone, but
Switzerland.
yes, yeah.
Tu parles en français.
Un petit peu, ouais.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
At least it's clear. I know it's off topic, but now we know it's not a mystery
No.
anymore.
I'm happy you said it. So right there, you already exemplified one of the aspects of the divine masculine, which one is clarity, truth, honesty, right? Like just being clear, projecting a clear picture, a clear narrative of yourself, right? So that you're already in your own live example embodying it. So all right, let's get a couple steps deeper, right? Let's get a couple steps deeper. Let's start with just one of the two, and you two as my guest, I'm going to say who would prefer to take the divine feminine and who would prefer to take the divine masculine between the two of you. You know, we'll just play a little game. Who would like to, and when I say take it, I mean like to elaborate on the feminine itself. And then the other can elaborate on the masculine itself. Like, how does it operate? What does this mean? I feel like it's spoken about so often, so frequently, but what is the divine feminine at its core? What is the divine masculine at its core? And how does that actually, how do we enact that as humans, you know, in real time? So who feels more drawn to the feminine? Let me just start with that.
I mean, you know, I'd say even before choosing who to take which, I think it's good to notice that at the end they really collapse into one. So it's actually the same thing.
It is.
But
1000%.
that being said, who takes which? I'm down to go on the masculine path, just because my struggle, to be honest, is that it was always about actually integrating love in my journey. So I might have an easier way to talk on this direction.
All right. So elaborate for us on the masculine.
If you can maybe give me a first hook on what I can develop upon, it might be useful.
Okay. So as I kind of step in with you in a moment, when I personally look at the divine masculine, there's the first thing that always comes to mind is, and I told this to some travelers that I just met. They're like, well, what is this? I always look at the first two main keywords for me is purpose and direction. Purpose and direction. Purpose and direction. Where am I going? And why am I going that way? You know what I mean? Like, in what direction of life, what area of life am I looking to be progressive? But within that progression, not aggressive. And I feel like there's a major difference, right? Like, and when I look at the divine masculine is not aggressive. It is actually soft, you know? And when I say soft, I mean gentle. literally bringing it back to gentlemen. You know what I mean? Like a gentle man, where it's like when we're in our divine masculine, nothing about us needs to be yelling and forceful. You know, this for me is not a divine masculine in its light reflection, if you will, right? And its light projection out there in the world. So when I think masculine, I'm always thinking purpose and direction. Where am I driven? What am I driven towards? Why am I driven towards it? And when I see that, that then allows the feminine, even within me, to feel safe enough to release survival mode, to release focusing on security, to release focusing on where will I make money, how will I make it, who I need to take care of, and how will I take care of them. It allows me then to, within my feminine within myself, to rest and know that, you know, I am being divinely guided. And as I'm being divinely guided by my masculine, my feminine can surrender and be in his natural dark feminine and energetic flow, which can be truly destructive. But because I know I have my masculine container, literally container, who I can trust and I can fall into the arms of, this brings me peace. And through that peace, I can create with my sexual energy as a feminine. I can use my sexual energy in a sense. I don't even want to say appropriately, but for lack of better words, appropriately. And when I mean appropriately in this instance, I mean to be a nurturing and supportive figure for the masculine. Because as the masculine is progressing with purpose and direction, he's going to take some blows, being the first to cut through the grass, right? Being the first to cut through the grass, I, as the feminine within myself, I can relax knowing that he's going to take some of that. Yet, as the feminine, I know that I'm here to essentially nurture and feed, you know, my warrior, where he doesn't need to focus on his wounds and when I say his wounds, like those initial cuts you take when you step into the unknown. Because the masculine, and how I see it, is always needing to be, you know, adapt to the unknown. Because when I'm progressing through new territory, I never really know what's on the other side. There's always going to be a mutation, something that I could not expect. But if I can surrender, even in my divine masculine, with the purpose and direction, if I can listen in stillness to what is God's message to me, then I'm not even really leading. I'm just still witnessing. So at least this is just to start the direction. And we can elaborate on that a lot more. This is where I start to see the divine masculine with purpose and direction. So if you want to take it forward.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think, you know, maybe just to make it more practical with Neeraj and me, I was just thinking in my head, being both guys, both of us, I feel like it's really hard for the masculine on itself to talk about the divine feminine. But I think what might happen on this live is that we might actually give an integration of the feminine in the midst of the masculine, in that sense. Because, you know me, like, I was really geeky on that stuff when it comes to learning about polarity, to the point where I was even taking courses for women to have like the opposite POV on how it looks like. Because inevitably, if you learn how the feminine works, you know what's the exact opposite, right? And I noticed how even though we might say that the feminine has his own inner masculine and vice versa, the embodiment of it is so different that I truly feel like for a man, for example, it's really hard to talk deeply about the feminine out of context of actually integrating it to one's masculine core. So just to say that, but then building upon what you said with purpose, you know, I had that little breakthrough lately, and it was what's actually true purpose. And I think a cool way to define purpose is doing what the moment calls me for. That's actually purpose. Because sometimes we have the idea of purpose as that kind of grandiose thing that I might want to create in the world. But then whenever we attach ourselves to that, it can be authentic, but very often it's more like an idea that our ego hold on to as a way to actually gain love and approval and control and power, which looks like you're not actually truly doing God's work, but you're more actually doing what looks like a trauma response. And I think that's something to really highlight, because most of the manosphere idea of being on your mission as a man, being a high status man, yeah, it's being a high status man to your POV, but it's still being that kind of third density consciousness ego realm kind of thing where you might be a really empowered guy, but it's like a wounded empowered guy. So eventually it's not about if you're doing the coolest, most flashy thing, but more like, are you truly aligned to what this moment calls you for to actually do? And if we're truly aligned to that, it can look like a beautiful vision to serve the world in this way, but it can also look like having a walk and doing it fully with presence and depth. And I think that's a beautiful trait of the masculine, to do things that are not only aligned and authentic, but to also do them with depth in them.
The presence and depth.
Yes.
That was key. This is the presence. I want to put that up on the screen. Presence itself is one of the most key words, you know, that you just spoke, and it was what why I'm loving that I have multiple guests to kind of come and speak about this, to hit those points, because with that purpose and direction, presence is like the man's, in a sense, how I see it, the man's best gift to the world.
Yes.
You know, when we can be present. And Neeraj, you want to elaborate on that? You want to elaborate potentially even on presence within the divine masculine?
Yeah. I think, like you said, you as a masculine, it's not just you leading and doing things out of your personal purpose. You know, Fabrice said it's God's work, not just ego, personal gratification, right? So you can say that the masculine also doesn't stand alone. The masculine, in order to be full, has to be rooted in something bigger than himself. And I think that's what the masculine is meant to represent. It's a structure and a container that represents what it stands for, what its essence is. And the essence of every man is his presence and his consciousness. And as you and I and we know, consciousness isn't just ours. Consciousness is borrowed from the source, the supreme consciousness, what we call God or source energy. So it's to be present, to be full, and to really be masculine isn't just to do you and be masculine in yourself, but also to borrow and channel the presence that comes through you from that higher source called God. So to be masculine, to bring your presence through, means that you're not only bearing witness to, but also embodying what it means to be like God and to do God's work by being like Him. Which is why in the Bible it talks about we must try to be like Christ, and Jesus Christ being an exemplary example of what it means to be man merged with God on earth. It's like the epitome of divine masculine. It's the full totality of God or pure consciousness on earth as a man. So to have that depth within you and to have that connection to your higher power, I think that's what creates presence. Because us by ourselves, it's like if you don't have anything flowing through you, like a masculine is a container, yeah? A container means it holds a space. It needs something to fill that space, otherwise it's hollow. So for there to be presence within that masculine container, it needs to be filled with something. And we can say that's God or consciousness or the Holy Spirit or the divine. And that, in a way, actually leads back to what Fabrice was saying, that in order to be masculine, you first have to be feminine or receptive to God. So you can fill your container with the purest substance. So that's how masculine and feminine actually go back together again. If
1000%.
masculine is giving and being, then the feminine is receiving and being. But they both need to do the same things in different sequences to play their roles. But if everything's really one, they're doing the same thing.
You're doing the same thing at the same time. You know what I mean? Like this is the integration, right? Like if you just look at, I always bring divine masculine and feminine to this triangle format, right? Like this holy trinity, if you want to call it, where like if you look through text, you look through history, the most divine things have always happened in a sense in three. Even if you look at this 12 zodiac signs in astrology, there's 12 zodiac signs, but they break down to 6 and then they break down to 3. And it's like there's always this 3. And when I see this triangle, if I say left being, it doesn't matter left or right, left being masculine, right being feminine, they reach this pinnacle when they're in union. When they're in union, and this equates back to this oneness, this oneness. And it's like, if until we have the divine masculine and the divine feminine working together interdependently, and this is the major thing when you look at a relationship, you look at your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your lover, your husband, your wife. The main principle in order for them to actually function fluidly together is if they can figure out within themselves as individuals how to work interdependently with those masculine and feminine energies. And it's like, if you look at any relationship, even if I take myself, for example, any relationship that I've been in, right? Whether I felt heartbroken or whether I felt lifted up, it almost matters less rather than the essence that was taken from it through both sides, which was what was coming through me. And anytime I felt like I've been in pain or like I felt like I was in extreme joy, whatever extreme on the left or the right, it was trying to bring me back to this balance beam standpoint in the middle. Again, to step into that witness consciousness, be present in that witness consciousness, and to realize that interdependence is what my soul was calling for most. How can I accept receiving love, admiration, pain, grief, and to flow in the emotional waves, but to be able to still, if you look in Buddhist or Taoism and stuff like that, it's like to be able to still sit at that middle line of the bridge and just witness, what does this high look like? What does this low look like? And essentially stop getting addicted to the high and addicted to this low, because I've been there for both. And it's like, to allow that process is a part of this human experience, how I see it, where allowing that process allowed me to appreciate both extremes, where then it's like, in order for me to integrate and be interdependent on both of them. And I say interdependent, I don't mean codependent. There's a huge difference. Codependent is now where I'm in this addictive state, right? And this is where I see, and I don't even really mean to hit it hard, but I know it's just this trendy thing. This is where I see twin flames can be tremendously toxic, where it can play on this codependent narrative, not interdependence. The twin flame narrative is like, look, it's when our souls are trying to see the high and the low and how to make it and how to help it hit this middle ground. And once we hit this middle ground, this is when that twin evaporates. I mean, literally out of existence, where it no longer becomes a chase or a run. It's just like, it becomes acceptance and being present with what it means to accept teamwork. Literally to accept teamwork, to embrace help, to embrace aid, and to be able to give love. But like, I think Fabrice has said it perfectly. Like, it's like checking in with God's work versus trauma work. And that was one of the main things I got out of what he said, checking in with God's work, being present with God's design rather than the trauma design. Aligning with trauma in me in this instance looks like being overly individualistic or being overly dependent. But go ahead.
Yes. No, like you sparked like an idea with me right now, like talking about God's work and trauma work, and also the idea of twin flames. I think there too is like, God doesn't need to label things because God on itself is pure innocence. And I think sometimes, all cool about the twin flame stuff, all cool about being a divine masculine, whatever it is, but it's like, let's not build all those labels that inevitably we'll have to dig ourselves out of it. So what I mean is that, what are you really gaining by labeling your couple as like a twin flame couple? What are you actually gaining by saying that you're like a divine masculine? Who cares ultimately? Because ultimately, for the masculine, what's really powerful is not to build identities, but to actually relinquish identities. Because ultimately, if who you are is consciousness, it's nothing, then for as long as you try to actually become something, that's actually weakness disguised as strength. So ultimately, just like in ACM, it's like, for anything that requires defense, you do not want. Because what calls for your defense ultimately weakens you. So ultimately, I don't know who I am. I literally do not know. And not knowing at this point becomes the highest wisdom. Because the universe is infinite, so are infinite ways to see at yourself, to look at yourself. So from there, I like to say like, cool, twin flames, divine masculine, but hey, let's let that go for a bit and just focus on what's there to actually be integrated when it comes to our own personal journey.
1000%. Relinquish the identity. So what you just said right there is what, in a sense, like the whole mission is about, back and forth.
Yes.
And I want to speak about why I feel like what you said is, in a sense, the direction that we're all aligning with, right? If I take the zodiac, for example, if I take this 12 zodiac, the only one who is literally at this oneness, the only one out of 12 zodiacs is Pisces. The only one. Now, Pisces is essentially this one Godhead, if you will, right? We're all one. It has every single other zodiac energy within itself. Now, who's the first one to separate from God as an individual? It's Aries. Aries is the first one it has enough power alone to split itself away from God and become an individual. And this begins this whole entire wheel where we eventually come right back to Pisces, oneness. Now, the reason I say that is to kind of give people some perspective of what I'm about to say next. I found that the way human logic works, it needs to attach to something. The monkey mind needs to feel like it needs to attach to something. And this is why, like, I don't ever really want to like poop on any particular label, simply because what I've realized is we have to step out into individuality, because until we can become independent, we rely and stay in this codependent state of being. And so we start off codependent. Okay, great. And then we become independent. Okay, awesome. And you said the most important part. Once we fight and actually gain our independence, in a sense, that's when we come back to the simple realization that we need to relinquish the identity, which again is Aries. We need to relinquish it all over again. And once we do that, it's because we become no name. We become the label, it just dissipates. And we essentially get back to this oneness. But the reason I wanted to kind of just paint that picture for a moment is we are living a human experience, right? Regardless of what our soul knowledge knows, what our soul wisdom understands from God knows how many past lives of, okay, we're all one. We have to paint our picture. We have to pave that. And we have to get back to that in our own way. As individuals, we have to get there in our own way, so that, because how well has it ever worked when someone tells you, do this and you'll get here? It usually never works until the person discovers that for themselves, of, okay, here's what I need to do, and I need to go my own way to do it. Even if I know the answer, I want to figure out how, and I want to experience how I can do this for myself, to realize ultimately that I always could have done this together. And so this is why, like, even if I look at, like, and again, I'm using that one label as an extreme for the moment, because what I really personally discovered is it's important to embrace people where they are. So even if somebody's in a state of labels, anybody listening, if they're in a state of labels of I'm this, I'm that, I am blah, 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 it's important to embrace them where they're at. Because it's like, to keep picking and being critical on anything only really makes that person attached to that criticism so much more. And then there's this journey of, I need, quote unquote, to do blah, 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 blah. And once we're in that need state again, we became codependent. Even if it's on the label, even if we become codependent on the label itself, not even another person. And it's like, in order to work through that, I found to move from that place of codependence, we have to become individuals. And as becoming individuals, we eventually, like you said, relinquish the identity. Once we do that, we become more sensitive to the environment, sensitive to the needs of others, no longer prioritizing myself over everyone or anyone, but leveling the playing field, realizing that I'm a part of everyone and
Yes.
everything.
This is a great segue into more masculine and feminine stuff. I really like this idea about the 12 zodiac signs and how they exemplify the relationship between oneness and individuality, and from individuality back into oneness. Because each zodiac sign represents a different concept or a different characteristic of the soul or the one consciousness.
Mhm.
And to understand masculine and feminine, you have to understand that masculine and feminine for each one of these signs. There's a masculine feminine part of Aries, masculine feminine part of
Mm.
Taurus,
Mm.
Gemini, and so on, all the way back into Pisces. And that oneness contains everything, right? But you also have to break down oneness into its pieces, because that's why we're in the earth reality, to experience duality, separateness, layers, one by one, individual, one by one, to understand the masculine and feminine relationship in your physicality, in your emotionality, your mentality, and your energies, and everything in between, and the different levels of that. I think the way to go about this is to define the masculine and feminine relationships at the highest level and at the lowest level, and then at every step in between. So now we can get into like a deeper conversation about what's the point, what does it look like, and what is the benefit of understanding these dynamics on each level of your being, and how does that help you live a better life here on earth? Because like you said, we can have the knowledge of oneness as our soul from the beginning, as oneness, as consciousness, as our true self. But we're here in the earth reality so that we can experience a slice of individuality. We can experience a portion of that oneness. And I think to be synced up with the oneness while still living in complete engagement with your individuality, that requires a lot of leaning in and leaning back, a lot of prioritizing self, prioritizing other, going between that choosing versus that complete witness consciousness and oneness, and then living in both of those at once. That requires some fine tuning. And I think it's really cool to be able to have that experience here because it's
Mm.
really rich. It's really, really rich. I think that's why we're here, anyways.
Hey, Miss Vanessa Marie, if you would like to join this discussion, all right, Vanessa Marie, if you would like to join this discussion as a woman, or any woman in here who feels like they have something to say from the female's perspective, let me know. Just say yes. Send me a message on Instagram or somewhere, and I'll send you the link where you can join this live with us now. I would truly love to have a woman to join in and give her personal perspective. And again, I know it's impromptu. Maybe your hair is not done, yada, yada, yada. But this is a part of what I see as divine dark feminine, where, your hair can be wild. None of that matters, right? And this is a part of the wild feminine. So again, if you're open for it, Vanessa, you're the only one I know on here. And I literally sent you the link to your DMs. Okay. So again, I know we never actually talked live in person, but this is a super impromptu. If you're feeling it, check your IG. I sent you the link. Click the StreamYard link, and I'll add you into the stream. Renaissance of Consciousness. I've seen you in here. Okay, same thing. Shoot me a DM. I don't have you on Instagram or anything like that, but what I'll say is shoot me a message on IG, and I'll send you the direct link to this. What is it? AstroShaman, Pernell, Bobby. Bam, if you type that on IG, find me, I'll send it to you right away. All right. So if a woman comes or not, okay, we spoke about the divine masculine. Okay. Let's do our best in a moment to embody the divine feminine and speak about what is the divine feminine? How does it look in 2023? Which is very different than how it looked 4 years ago. It's very different than how it looked 10 years ago, and it's definitely different how it looked 300 years ago, right? Like these narratives are always in flow. They're always in influx, based off of where the collective consciousness of society is currently at, and not necessarily the individual, right? As individuals, somebody can be a freaking master to be able to explain this, but as a collective, we have a lot of work to do together, right? So we're going to do our best in the moment at 2023, the month of February, to express the divine feminine? Does
Something I
anybody feel like
might,
they want to lead on that?
yeah, I have like a little idea on that I wanted to share. And to be honest, it goes also for men and actually women. You mentioned like what could be like an embodiment of the divine feminine in this
Mhm.
year. Sometimes we have like an idea of what it should look like. It's like the man should be like that and the woman should be like that. But it's that surface level kind of representation that's very often, not always, comes from insecurity. In the sense that very often you think about the most embodied woman that's like really in her body on IG doing all her kind of dance and things like that. And very often, from what I've seen, the women that expose the most their body in this way are not always the most, in a way, acceptant about their own physique, in a sense that for both ends, seeing that actually the value of the feminine is not actually in her body and how her body looks like, but more on the fact that love can actually move openly through her body without being all wrapped up due to trauma or thinking. But just to say that sometimes the most flashy people that we see, for example, models or stars and for the masculine, might not be the ultimate embodiment of that because it's something that's more low-key, down-tempo, kind of cool than a flashy thing very often.
So you spoke about where we're at in 2022 to 2023. That was right on the head. That was right on the head, and where it's been for years now. If we're being honest, I mean, if I look at this from an astrological standpoint, 2008 is when Pluto in Capricorn entered, or Capricorn entered Pluto, if you will, and is ending this March in 2023. That is, I don't know, 15 some odd years or something like that. It's a long time. And the reason I bring that up is Capricorn has that public image. It's about that public image. It's about creating an image of what I want the world to see me as, not necessarily the internal and emotional acceptance of where I'm truly at. It's oftentimes much a repressed emotional expression at the deepest internal level, which externally is reflecting this mirage. It's externally reflecting this mirage. And so, you know, to complement what Fabrice just said, that's ending this March. The whole Instagram model imagery, the whole, like you said, women moving their body and letting that external image of what this body movement looks like to create a feeling that is not internally secure. You know, not internally embraced. I don't even want to say secure. Not internally embraced. Not internally accepted to the full expression of what it means to be wild, chaotic, something that challenges and sharpens the masculine to perform and to progress and to be the container, a container that is ever expansive so that the divine feminine can be ever expansive because it is ether itself. It is divine potential. It is limitless. And what I found is, at least from the divine feminine, many women are not embracing their masculine at a healthy level internally. And as a part of that, by not being disciplined in certain areas of life, and I do say disciplined, and instead projecting insecurities outward about this man ain't boom, 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 boom. This man ain't poop. This man ain't crap. This narrative, what it's really reflecting is I'm operating as a woman within my masculine from a place of survival. And this is something that has in its own, as a collective narrative, has been forced to become an independent woman. But again, in 2023, and for the last couple of years, that narrative itself has been shifting. And it's important for us to mutate and move along with it, to flow. Kind of like Fabrice said, not externally on what the camera can see, but to flow internally and allow myself to shift these waves and to not, as the feminine, even me as a male, to allow my feminine to move freely, internally, Key word, internally, however it pleases. However it pleases. And if I look at my feminine within me internally, it has challenged my masculine to continuously progress and step up, to continuously progress and be present with the container that I need today, not yesterday, not 10 minutes ago, but in the moment, consistently, always present in the moment. And that container of the male needs to then, in reverse, reflect and embrace that feminine flow that says, when I get challenged by a woman or by a feminine energy, that I do not overpower the feminine within me, that I do not aggressively address the feminine within me, but I listen with presence to the challenge and either choose to rise to that challenge or let her go. Because like I said a little earlier, the divine feminine, the feminine energy within itself, it is chaotic. It is destructive. But it is only destructive for a masculine container that cannot contain it. And so when a masculine realizes that he can't contain it, what does he do then? Does he look to dominate the feminine within him and suppress that emotion, suppress that embodiment of love, that divine, pure, potential, etheric energy? Or does he essentially surrender as a divine masculine? And I would like to kind of talk about, what does divine masculine surrender look like? Because we often talk about divine feminine surrender. We often talk about divine feminine surrender, but it's like the divine feminine cannot surrender if the divine masculine if the divine masculine can't surrender. And they look different. They feel different, but they're still the same.
Yes. And brother, just before going into that topic, just to conclude the one with the with women, and when it comes to the embodiment of the divine feminine, I was bringing up the IG example not as a critic, but actually as an empowerment, in the sense that I feel like, from what I've seen also working with women once in a while, women can get a bit in their head when it comes to how their body look like. And ultimately it's knowing that for the masculine, even though the masculine is always attracted to physical form, what inevitably makes the day for a man is not actually how her body looks, but the radiance that moves through her body.
Boom.
And that's ultimately the thing. And I think it's same on the opposites for the man. And for example, a masculine man that has a feminine partner, for him, it's not actually his amount of money that he makes or his success in the world, but more, again, like his depth of consciousness that actually makes the day for the feminine. And just, like not mixing what looks like the symbol of the thing and the essence of the thing is what I wanted to bring before, to make sure it's really clear and there's like no confusion in the midst of that.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. The clarity is exactly what we're talking about,
damn,
right?
1 second. I have the nodes are cut. If you can still hear me. Oh man.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay. I'm gonna take it from here until they come back. What Fabrice just said. Don't worry about it, Fabrice. You'll work it out when it comes. What Fabrice was just saying, and like Vanessa saying here, he said it perfectly. Okay, not to offend anybody. Nobody talks about mental health. How is this healthy? All right, David, we're gonna cover in on that. Give me a moment. All right. What Fabrice was just saying was so.
Can you hear me, brother? For some reason, I had my phone died. I can't hear you on mine. I guess you can hear me.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Man, the worst timing for a clash. It was a good flow. 1 second. I'm so bad at that. It's like one of those first lives. I'm a bit.
No worries. I can't hear you. I don't think.
Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. All right. For now, I just muted his mic. I don't think he could hear me. That I said I could hear him.
All right.
Let me see. Hold on.
Oh man, I don't know if Neeraj is also there. Maybe he can take over. But you know what, brother? I'll try to leave the room and re-enter it again, and hopefully I can hear you. Sorry for the delay. My bad.
No worries. All right. So I went ahead and removed him for the moment. So there was something important he said, and I can attest to this myself. It took me time to recognize that I was ever attracted to the external appearance of a woman. Internally, like my spirit knew that it was so much more than that. And Fabrice said it perfectly. He said the radiance that moves through her body, and that's like me, the divine feminine, the radiance that moves through her body. I see you, Fabrice. I'll add you in a second. The radiance that moves through her body. And it almost hurt me the day I realized, it did. It hurt me the day I realized, like, oh my God, there's these certain superficial aspects within me that is literally looking at the external and not the radiance moving through that woman's body. And what I realized back within myself was I, as a male, was not allowing the feminine radiance to move through my body. And I myself was aligning with what externally looked like what it looked like. And so for me, for example, this is actually my 10th house, my external radiance, if you will. My external radiance is actually Virgo. Virgo is a feminine energy. And it's a very critical feminine energy. So I was when this state of being out of alignment, of being interdependent with my masculine and my feminine within me, myself. I see the gentleman back. One second, y'all. Y'all in the stream. All right. You know, me coming and recognizing that out of alignment within me, myself as the masculine, I realized exactly what Fabrice was saying. I did not allow the radiance to flow through me. And I was aligning too critically of this external appearance, looking to, in a sense, perfect this. And this is the truly neurotic form of Virgo, the truly erotic expression. No, not erotic, neurotic expression of Virgo, being overly and hypercritical of my external image. And so as I started to begin to address this and see this for what it was, it goes back to what Fabrice was saying about the divine feminine. This is not about criticizing any external image of what women are going through, because like I said, it's important for us to accept where is each and every single person at, and to not criticize them. And when we do, to recognize that we're essentially judging ourselves and how we understand that we're not in alignment within ourselves. That's where the criticism is coming from in the first place, right? So I just had to like kind of elaborate on that and give some personal experience of, you know, when was I denying the radiance to move through me, my own feminine energetic radiance to move through me at a deeper internal level. And I was aligning with what it looked like on the surface. Because once that began to happen, Fabrice had said something recently on one of his posts that maybe he'll elaborate on. And I'll bring them both back in. He said something recently on his post, and it was kind of like, oh crap, I totally lost my thought trying to bring y'all back in. But I'm gonna give it back to them, and it's gonna come back to me later. So I'll end in the moment now to not get caught up in the logic, and I'll again step back into letting the message flow through me. It's about that radiance flowing through us. And that's something that, you know, you can't design that. It can only be accepted. You can't design that image of radiance flowing through you. It's like it's embraced, it's accepted for all of its flaws and beauties. And I quote flaws because, again, that within itself, seeing any of this process of this flow as a flaw or as a beautiful thing is already, again, back to the labeling. And we lost this. We skipped a step. We lost it. We lost it as soon as we begin to label it again. And that's the toughest part, where when we start actually integrating, interrelating with our own divine masculine, our own divine feminine within us, we literally, the criticism ceases altogether. The label ceases altogether. And oftentimes we actually stop speaking. We literally stop speaking, because it's like Neeraj said that point a little bit earlier. It's like when God's presence is flowing through us, only what needs to be said gets said. And oftentimes nothing needs to be said. When we're allowing that radiance and that essence of being to flow through us, with us as a vessel in this meat suit. But I'm gonna give it back to y'all.
If you knew the stress in my head better, it's like my phone had 1% of battery and I had to finish the train of thoughts. Meanwhile, the audio cut it and I was like, damn, everything is falling apart. Happy to be back though.
Absolutely.
Maybe Neeraj, you want to go first? I think you also had a crash. So maybe if you want to build it up before me, feel free to go before.
I did have a crash. We're talking about the feminine, yeah?
Absolutely. In the moment.
In the moment. You know, I think the whole point of the feminine is just as a representation of like all that is. And by all that is, I mean that it's legitimately everything. If the masculine is individuality and steps and a journey, the feminine is like the beginning and the end at once. And everything in the middle too. It's all oneness. So to be the feminine is basically for me to be synced up with everything, is to be that oneness with everything. And then the masculine's job is honestly to hold the space step by step to get back into the feminine. Because the feminine represents flow, it represents everythingness, it represents like the alpha and the omega, so to speak, the beginning and the end. And it's pure infinity. And the masculine is like holding space and creating containers for like little sections of infinity. Like we call that labeling, or we say making definitions out of it. But in all totality, the infinity is always there. And the infinity came first. There has to be nothing before there is something. But even when there's a nothing and a something, it's still always all of it. Like you could say there's like a yin and a yang, there's two halves, but really there's just the circle. That oneness is what I think the feminine represents. And then the flow that things happen in that oneness, you can say that's the feminine moving through you, but I think the feminine is just everything. And then how you witness that feminine and how you decide to look at it and then how you decide to take part in it is what the masculine does. So moment to moment, this is always the feminine. I think that's why like women are so tapped into vibes and into emotions and into energy, because they're more fundamentally, even like biologically tapped in with the isness of the moment, the isness of reality. And they're already in tune with the movement of things going on around them and themselves as a part of that thing, their surroundings, themselves as a part of that everythingness. And they can feel things as they happen rather than having to go and look for it and strive for it all the time. So to be feminine is more like to let go of the labels, like we said, and to stop trying to put so many boxes or containers around things. And what's left over is pure feminine consciousness, the flow, radiance, ever changing movement, the isness of life, pureness.
Thank you.
So,
And you know, I think what's cool in what you said is that, yeah, the feminine is everything because everything is consciousness in a way. But because consciousness is nothing, for consciousness to know itself, it has to be embodied in something. And that's why it's the beauty of those things being embodied, that's the feminine, the manifests, and the unmanifest, that's the masculine. So one is alive, one is dead. One wants more, one wants nothing. I think it's a beautiful way to see it. Just like, you know, like imagine if you were the sun has to see itself, it has to shine its light onto things. So at an ultimate truth, I am nothing. At the relative truth, I am everything. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Absolutely. This is the as above, so below.
Yeah.
As within, so without. 1,000%. 1,000%. So I want to take a moment to actually do this breath exercise, right? And it's specifically to interlink left brain, right brain, as well as masculine, feminine. All right. So tap in with me real quick. Let's do this breath movement. Take your hand. All right. I'm going to close my left or my right nostril with my thumb. You can place these two fingers on your third eye or where it would be. And so I'm going to inhale only through the left nostril, slowly,
Yes.
quietly. All right. Very slow, very quiet. I'm going to take a 5-second inhale through the left. And I'm going to visualize the air going up to the third eye. I'm going to close my other nostril with my ring finger. As I open up the thumb, I slowly exhale. Just let the air escape out of that nostril for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to inhale through the thumb, slow. 7, 6, quietly. 5, effortlessly. 4, 3, inhale. 1. As I close my nostril, I open up my ring finger and I allow the air to escape on its own, surrendering to the moment, surrendering to the breath.
I have no battery. Oh my god, brother. Oh man.
And I'm going to inhale through that ring finger again on the left. As I notice my belly begin to expand, my shoulders release and relax, my jaw begins to lose all of its tension and just fall. As I close my ring finger, I slowly allow the air to escape from the right. Releasing and exerting softly in a gentle, compassionate way what does not belong. And I slowly inhale for 7 seconds, quietly, softly, effortlessly, gently, with compassion. I inhale compassion. I inhale authenticity. I inhale the flow. I inhale realness. I inhale potential. As I close my thumb, from the third eye down, allow the air to escape. Don't exhale, just let it escape out of the nostril. And I destroy everything that does not align with compassion, with love, in a nurturing manner. And now that we're finally in that flow state, I take this last inhale, soft, slow, effortless. So allow my belly to naturally expand and collapse. I close my nostril with the ring finger and I open up my thumb. And again, noticing my tongue feeling light, effortless, and my jaw relaxed like a feather floating through the sky. I inhale the beauty of every moment. As I close my nostril, I exhale anything out of alignment. Thank y'all for taking that moment with me. Just while you're here, just feel into the difference in your body. Feel those molecules flow in a more natural, compassionate manner. Feel into the surrender. Feel into the ease. Notice all the thinking just dissipated. And all the feeling took the forefront. And notice how much doesn't even need to be said anymore. We become more sensitive to this entire experience. Beautiful. So, Neeraj, from this state, if God was to talk and speak through you as a vessel, what are you being asked to say?
Give yourself space to breathe.
Give yourself space to breathe.
Everything happens in the in-between moments.
Beautiful. So, we've come here today to talk about the energetics of the masculine and feminine energy and to bring clarity. Hopefully, clarity at this point has already been engaged. And what I would like to ask from this moment in the comments to share either questions or revelations. One or the other. To share questions or a revelation in the moment, in the now. I think I might have got a what? Got a strange call. Okay. I thought that was a woman trying to come on here. But maybe it's just a call. Just be. That's a simple one. Renaissance of consciousness. Notice how we were all able to just take that moment and not even speak much, and everything just seemed to make sense. Breath. Today is the Gemini moon. I do have a woman apparently looking at this right now. I'm gonna say join the stream yard to talk about the feminine. Okay, so I think I actually might have a woman joining in here. Okay, I'm seeing a revelation pull up on screen. Being present is something I took from this live. That breathing exercise allowed to focus and just be calm. Absolutely. Be present and focus on my presence. This is one of the most beautiful parts about breath work. Again, the moon is in Gemini and Mars is in Gemini right now, and it's been there for the last 6 to 7 months or so. And Gemini is our lungs. Gemini is one of the first embodiments of the divine masculine and feminine in unison, in duality. Gemini is literally the first sign of pure streaming consciousness that can accept and embrace the left and the right. And we currently have the moon there, which means what? Our past lives and multiple lives, our collective unconscious, okay? Our entire collective unconscious within the Gemini is the first to experience divine masculine and divine feminine energy. The first. And that eventually progresses and evolves where it's more, let's say, if I don't want to get too crazy into the label, this divine, most oneness form, the second form of duality in Pisces. But Gemini is really where that begins. But it's a very young beginning. But it is the first to kind of get a taste of what it means to integrate the light and the dark, what it means to integrate the feminine and the masculine, what it means to integrate dualities. But, you know, dualities is within itself a separation, which is why until we really get to Pisces, those dualities don't even matter anymore. It becomes less about, you know, dualities that we can logically talk about, which today is Gemini moon, Gemini and Mars today. That's what we can logically speak and say. Pisces is where it starts the duality of heaven and earth, aka as above, so below. And that's going deeper into what Neeraj said, you know, about being a feminine energy, pure consciousness. But pure consciousness without a form, aka without the masculine, I mean, we essentially just all returned to the ether. We all returned to just being a spirit in essence, and there's no human. So proud Gemini in the chats. I'm on. Yeah, so Chrissy, if you're in this, I sent you the link. We're talking, if you wanted to speak about the divine feminine, I know you just got in this chat, but if you wanted to speak about the divine feminine and clarify, or even about the divine masculine from your perspective as a woman, you know, we do have 2 other gentlemen on the call that gave their perspective so far. And I know you didn't catch the beginning of this, but if you want, you can join. I sent it to you. The StreamYard link is there. It's easy. You click the link. You're able to join from your phone. And you can share your experience as a woman when it comes to relating interdependently with your masculine and your feminine energy. Fabrice, is there anything that came to mind while you were, and when I say came to mind, what I want to say is like, is there a message that God came and wanted you to deliver while you were in this in-between space? Is there something that God was like, look, the people should hear this. The people need this in the moment.
Yes. Good question. I have something in my heart that I wanted to share. And again, I'm sorry that my phone is always crashing, and I think it might crash again. So
No
I'm
apologies.
just taking it ahead. I'm having some technical issues, but there's something that you said earlier, and it's about embodiment of what looks like healthy masculinity and femininity. I think a good way to summarize that is just actually having the least amount of friction between you and your shadow. In the sense that, to be honest, it's like as a man, you're born as a man. As a woman, you're born as a woman. So it's almost like you can't do it wrong until you attempt to do something. And this actually makes it quote unquote wrong, like inauthentic. In the sense that, if you take those qualities like the Shiva quality and the Shakti quality, it's a quality. So it's not that you become more masculine, it's not that you become more feminine. Technically, you're just actually being yourself. And as you're just actually being yourself, you become the embodiment of Shiva or of Shakti, the divine masculine or feminine. And I think that the moment that we don't trust ourselves to actually naturally be who we are, and we start to become, and then the masculine tries to, in a way, change his voice, change the way he speaks, and change the way he looks, then it looks like, yeah, he doesn't really have it. He's actually pretending it. And same for the feminine. And I think what a cool reassurance to go like, actually, I was born enough. I just have to truly be myself. And that actually is, in my opinion, a healthy embodiment of masculinity and femininity. I'm curious to hear you guys' take on that, on this approach. That looks like more like a reversal approach, like not a self-improvement kind of thing, but more like a letting go of the traumas that actually blocks your natural authenticity from shining through.
Well, so when you say that, my big thing has always been about like really looking at the pain, looking at the trauma, and seeing it as the map, to get back to that oneness, to get back to who am I truly, what's the true form? What's my true form? What's my true experience? What's my true expression? And, I have a list behind me, and I'm going to share a couple keywords. I've actually written out. I mean, I've had this here for a long time. I have this divine masculine, divine feminine on the left and the right. And, I periodically just read this just to remind myself. And it just helps me understand, in the moment, how to be present in the moment of what quality am I embodying, whether it's on the light or the shadow side. And I did it for both. So I want to kind of just shoot out some keywords, and I want y'all to listen with your spirit, because I promise you, something will trigger within the both of you. And then I want you to speak from that spirit place. Okay. So give me a moment. Okay. The divine masculine, I see the light form as being mindful, accountable, being in integrity, being organized, being merciful. And that's a key one for me. Being independent, being non-judgmental, major key one, being courageous, being sexual, being intellectual, impartial, strategic, grounded, having the will to power, being assertive, okay, not aggressive, assertive, and having focus. And this is on the light side of the divine masculine. Now, I'm going to share some of the shadow aspects of the divine masculine. And I have here being the persecutor. This is huge, okay? Cold detachment, and we've seen this. Controlling, egotistical, the shadow of the divine masculine. Emotionally numb, dominant, abusive, ruthless, angry, intimidated. And this is the biggest one I've seen when it comes to males and their masculine, not just males, but masculine energy, being intimidated by the feminine, by the wild expression of authenticity. And then the last I have is being reckless. Now, maybe we stop right there before we shift to the light and the shadow of the feminine. Let's just put a focus on those light and shadows of the masculine. Spirit, what did it come through and say to you? What did it come through you to say in this moment?
I definitely felt nauseous a little bit when you went down the dark masculine. It was whatever you said after persecutor. That one hit me in my chest.
Cold detachment. It was
Yep.
cold detachment, controlling, egotistical, aggressive, emotionally numb, dominant, abusive, ruthless, angry, intimidated, reckless. Those are the shadows.
Yeah, that definitely gave me some antsy for sure.
What about it though? Let's take a moment to be vulnerable. You know, this is one of the lights of the feminine. Take a moment to be vulnerable as men on the grand stage. Like, and we don't even have to put it on the solo. Like, what about that triggered you? Because like we said earlier, you know, Fabrice's post is one of the, I seen it yesterday. I was in the airport and I saw it yesterday. And it was about what he said about, you know, embracing truly our pain and recognizing that as that map where it's like, look, we don't need to attach to the trauma to witness it. We don't need to attach to the pain to witness it because it's just a map. That trigger is a map. It's a guide back to what is authentic about me. What is authentic about us? When I say us, I'm talking about the interdependent and the unison of everything I am, woman and man, and realizing that there's no separation between the two. It is simply what we needed at this point of our evolution to come back to the fact that I am not a man, I am not a woman. This is the rise of the Pluto Sagittarius generation where non-binary has become a thing because they truly recognize at a soul level that they're not a man or a woman. So, you know, again, collectively, we have to collectively recognize what is unconscious on a collective level and bring consciousness to it collectively. Because it doesn't matter if 10,000 men and women can hear what I'm saying. If 9 billion of us or so, give or take, don't collectively resonate with that, then we can't mutate as a society, as a globe, as an entire, as consciousness itself. It takes all of us. No one can be missing out of that equation until we officially mutate as an entire collective. So, you know, let's take a moment to get vulnerable. What was the trigger about co-detachment or being a persecutor? I think co-detachment is what you said for you.
Yeah, but it was definitely both of those.
It was both. And they're usually always all active. I mean, let's be real. Like each and every day, you know, 5 minutes later from 2 hours from now, we go through a flow of all of this. I can fully admit and say that like I have been on hot, cold, detached moments where I had to take the real energy to start seeing the truth that, man, I'm looking at this woman as being on and off hot and cold. She was a reflection of me where I was being hot, cold. It's like, I'm leaning towards you and I'm pulling away, and I was playing the extremes, turning it on and off as a trauma response. But as I detach from that trauma response itself, what is life trying to show me through this trigger?
Just not being honest with myself. Because that hot and cold response, whether it be the persecutor or the cold detachment or leaning in way too much and then leaning back way too far, it's all compensatory. It's all to compensate for the lack of that middle ground. And I felt it in my chest, in my heart. And if there's anything that screams balance and wholeness, it's your heart. And I feel like I felt that in my chest, not because that's where the pain was, but that wasn't the trigger. It was more like that energy got returned to that place in my heart that it hasn't been for a little bit, and I felt it as discomfort, but it really wasn't. It wasn't a trigger. It just, the energy was like fresh. It's like pushing on a. It's like opening up your arm or being able to breathe after a long time of having your nose congested. It feels painful at first, but it's actually life coming back to it. It's not a trigger. I didn't feel triggered. I just got reminded of something.
Yes.
And that's what it was.
Yes.
And I experienced it as kind of like a painful nausea, which it was actually that flame coming back into my heart.
Yes, that reintegration period. I fully can resonate with that. I felt that myself plenty of times. I want to address this because, you know, I always feel called and drawn to giving people practical solutions in the moment, right? Raina, I see you. You can check your IG. I saw you sent the message. You can hit that StreamYard. You'll be backstage, and I'll add you in if you want to come in live as a woman and speak about this. But let's address Courtney Cox for a moment. And beyond that, before that, Neeraj, thank you for that moment of vulnerability. Okay, being able to take a moment to really focus and hone in on what was really happening and not just simply accepting my projected message, right? Like I was like, what's triggering you? But you didn't accept the projected message. You took a moment to feel into what were you really feeling, not what I suggested. So thank you for that. Now, Courtney said, my partner is having a challenging time separating from his trauma. Okay. I want to help him. But I feel like he needs to make that choice. Any advice? Okay, so I got my two guys here that work together, and they made a joint thing that says advice never heard before. What can you tell this woman that has never been heard before?
First of all, I like those kind of stuff because, you know, I personally suck at when it comes to just talking about things randomly. But if there's like a question, like I think it always triggers within us an act of service to others where you really want to share something good. Courtney, for your partner, before we dive too deep into a deeper kind of advice, it's good to eventually know what kind of trauma response from him, because this might actually change how you might want to interact with him on your end. But a first answer that I could share when it comes to not what you want to do, but more you understanding him better. For the masculine, what feels like impossible mission looks like being more vulnerable than how vulnerable I am right now. And I think many guys have that pressure of, I want to be more vulnerable, yet I cannot. And then you get stuck into that. So the moments the masculine can accept that he cannot be more vulnerable than and how vulnerable he is right now is how he can actually crack open deeper. But very often there's that pressure of him wanting to be more vulnerable. He can't do that. Pressure of the partner. And then it feels like a endless loop for him where he feels like stuck in self-attack. So it's like accepting that I can't be vulnerable than the way I am right now. And this actually just collapsed the whole thing.
Wow.
From my experience, having myself that
So what you just said, you know, the thing that came through me in the moment is, okay, in his divine masculine shadow, why does he feel intimidated? 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 And when we can get
my
deeper
phone died
into
again.
that, oh man,
holy shit! Oh,
my man's going through it. I removed him from the stream for now. Okay, so why does he feel intimidated? All right, now I'm sad that Fabrice is not going to hear this part. And Raina, remember, you can join this at any time. Okay, you can join us at any time. I really wanted Fabrice to hear this part before I explain the divine feminine. So before I do, Neeraj, do you have anything you want to add on specifically to be able to help the audience, help the people that's really here live with us with this particular question? Advice never heard.
So, Courtney, the number one thing I could say is that the way that men work is that, you know, similar to what Fabrice is saying, like he needs to come into his own. That's what's going to make him feel like he's strong, is that he made the journey between point A and point B. And it's not something that you can fix. It's not something you could do for him. The only option I think that you have is, are you going to be able to love him when he's down and love him when he's at the top? Because that oscillation is going to happen. At the end of the day, excuse me, sorry about that. At the end of the day, he's going to be able to make that jump of growth. He's going to be able to do that. You know it's going to happen. It's part of his journey. But he needs to know that his in between stages, between the being his best self, that's acceptable too. What men get intimidated by and what they feel, at least from my perspective, what holds them back from making the quick change that actually can happen, the quick transition from disempowerment into empowerment. That's you stay stuck in that place because you don't want to, for lack of better words, mess up or F up on the way there. If you already feel really bad, then you don't want to make things worse. He's probably acutely aware of how his bad behaviors are affecting himself and you. He's probably acutely aware of how to, of how to actually fix himself. And he's probably stuck in the middle of like, what's the right thing to do? How do I move through this and not cause any more damage than I have done already? Every man on the inside is a good man. He has a good heart. There's no such thing as a person with a bad heart.
No.
At the beginning, everybody wants to be good, right? But the thing is, either a man will stay stuck because he feels like there's nothing that he can do, and he's either damned if he does or damned if he doesn't, and that's going to create that stagnancy. Or he'll just be cold and just say, "F it, I'm not going to make any moves at all. I'm just going to do whatever I want," and it never works out anyway. So it becomes like more nihilistic. I think the best thing we can do as supporters for men, or you as his woman, is to not tell him, not just like say it, but like don't run away from his babyish activities,
Ooh.
his emasculate type of childish moves. Don't judge him on those things, but rather understand this is what the process of growth looks like. And if he was able to just pull the trigger and just shift out of his trauma, then he would. But he needs to go through the process of accepting himself as an F up in his mind. He needs to accept himself as deficient before he can rise to his true potential. He needs to feel empowered by first letting himself feel disempowered. That's what men are scared of the most. We don't want to feel like we don't have control because we know that's our job. That's our innate quality. That's what makes us who we are. That's what makes us strong. So if a man feels like he does not have a grip over himself or a grip over what's going on, then he's going to scatter to try to scramble and make it work. And in that sense, that's when things go, haywire. So
1000%.
that is what the
1000%.
process of growth looks like, honestly. And it looks
1000%.
messy. It's supposed to be messy, honestly, because we need to love ourselves when we're messy, not just when we're good. And that's the problem. He attaches to his trauma because he's trying to attack the story. He's trying to beat his way into strength rather than love his way into strength. And I think if this is something that's been going on for a while, it's not just going to be raw willpower that's going to get him out on top. I think he's genuinely going to have to look at himself and realize that, number one, you're not going to walk away. You're not going to walk away from him acting like a child or acting like less than perfect. And that will allow him to see that he doesn't have to walk away either. And he could change the story around expressing himself and letting go of these stories, these traumas. He just clings on to it because he doesn't know what to do about it. Genuinely.
So you said, Neeraj said some key critical things. Thank you for sharing. I feel like everybody's resonating with that in the moment where you really spoke from the heart on that, and that's what we're here to do today. That's what I feel like. That's where I feel like the true shift happens. The true shift happens. I'm excited for when we get into the light and the shadow of the divine feminine. But right now, I feel like the reason it hasn't happened is because divine masculine wasn't done. Okay, it wasn't done. And what I felt at some point of this is, the beginning was, why does he feel intimidated? Second, it made me feel like, Courtney, and I can't say that this is happening or not, but are you persecuting him? Are you potentially in your divine shadow on the masculine side, where what is being potentially, and again, this is just feeling in the moment, was potentially being masked as, I'm trying to support him. Are you persecuting him? Are you essentially trying to push him through that dark space where it feels like, or we convince ourselves that I'm pushing him through this dark space and this is me being compassionate? Or is this actually an act of aggression where, again, these things work in reflections? These things work in reflections. And so what I'm saying is the man or the divine masculine energy will always be in a dark space. It is his design to always be in the space of the unknown, where he only needs presence. If he stays present and he can focus on that purpose that essentially was given to him. Okay, not something he's logically thinking he needs to do, but a purpose and a presence that has been given and embodied through him. That radiance of, this is what I was told to do. That little jingle, that little voice, clairaudiently giving a little message like, this is where you should be. This is where you need to be right now. This is where I need you right now as a vessel, right? Not something that you're strategically trying to think that this will be what we need to gain security, or here's this, because there's these outdated narratives and models about what does it mean to be in your divine masculine. So the key when Neeraj is speaking is like, is this question right here, just allowing him to be where I speak about this myself. When I was in relationships and I was in this unknown space, first off, it's terrifying. Trying to pretend that it's not terrifying, trying to pretend that I was not afraid to not know where to go or what to do, or just the reality of, especially with those moments and stages in my life when I was just uncomfortable, not knowing. The worst thing that I feel like a man can go through in that moment is for the woman to then question this stage or this phase, as if, especially in this persecuting fashion. That's the key word behind this, like persecuting, creating a deeper sense of intimidation, of figure it out, be a man. Be a man. That's like, or on a separate narrative, if a woman is placing this man in a box, and when I mean by a box in this instance, I'm saying this be a man box and what it means to be a man. Because there's an understanding from a logical standpoint of what it means to be a man. But that's logic. That's not God. That's not a God source energy coming through us. That's something that we've attached to give us a certain sense of stability, a certain sense of security while we're in that unknown space. But that's false. Personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Personal opinion. Allowing ourselves to be in that unknown space as males. And again, remember, this is an energetic discussion. So this means as a woman allowing herself to be in that dark, unknown space where nothing makes sense, where nothing is clear until it is. That's the hardest part I find, is like waiting for us to respond rather than reacting when we are in that space that we just don't know. We don't know what's next. Where will I live? I don't know. What job will I take in between jobs? I don't know. Allowing ourselves to actually say, I don't know, rather than reacting and trying to force a knowing, especially before that is embodied through us. That is essentially how, when Fabrice said earlier, we allow ourselves to allow the radiance to flow through us, rather than trying to artificially create a sense of radiance, or that I'm doing better than what I am, or that there's a label of better or worse. Force itself takes us out of spirit. It takes us away from aligning with those source energetic messages that's sent to us daily, moment by moment, in between the breaths.
I would like to add here that the force and the idea of force is a response to fear. And if a man is in, or anybody really, is in fear of the unknown, of not knowing where to go, of not knowing what is next, or how to move, or who they are, that fear is actually a feminine response. It's not actually a masculine thing, because the opposite of the masculine, or the masculine in its deficiency, is anger, and the feminine in its deficiency is fear. So a man is trying to man up and trying to be the man, like strive for this definition of what it means to be a man. But he thinks that the idea is that he's not masculine enough. But if he's feeling fear, that's actually because he's not femininely integrated enough. And masculine is grown through challenge and through tension, and then overcoming that tension and taking presence and dominion over that. But the feminine is not loved. The feminine isn't grown through challenge and tension like the masculine is. It's grown through love. So if your man is experiencing fear, or if you are experiencing fear of the unknown, Maybe you're afraid of what's going to happen if he can't hold you down. And you're afraid of what's going to happen if you can't hold him down. That fear response can't be fixed by more tension. That's going to exacerbate the situation. Only love is going to take away fear. More growth and more tension and more challenge does not make the fear go away. Love is what makes the fear go away. That's why we say hold
Neeraj,
space for that.
you mind if I speak on this?
Yeah.
To compliment what you're saying, and the reason I felt like so passionate to just be like, boom, it's like taking fear away. In how I see it personally, has never been a part of the mission. Fear exists and fear is real. Fear exists and fear is real, and primitively, at a primal level, it is integrated into our genetics. Fear matters. Fear is necessary. You know, like to pretend that a lion sitting in front of my face and pretending that I'm not afraid, or trying to love the lion in the moment if I know I'm in fear, that's not necessary. In my opinion, that's not necessarily helpful. You know what I'm saying? Like fear will help us understand. Like if anything, the way I see it in the moment is love can help us accept that fear is a requirement to part of this human existence. It's part of the requirement, but I feel like love can help us to smooth the edges of fear, to allow ourselves to actually be afraid. But being afraid does not mean that we need to dissipate all actions. It doesn't mean that we need to, choose left, choose right, work out of fight or flight. It's like, if anything, love just helps us, in how I see it at least, to smooth those edges and embrace that fear is a very necessary human emotion. And to try to take it away, to try to displace it somewhere else, and to try to logically try to decide whether this is necessary or not, I think we can cross some dangerous, it's almost like trying to rewrite the part of our genetic code that is very valuable. I find fear very valuable. But it's like, I'm gonna try to use an example. Okay, I'm afraid that I won't be able to pay my rent next month. Okay, and even let's say even more accurate, I'm afraid that if I move from the house that I'm in, if I move away from my certain security that I'm in, I have markets next to me, my rent is controlled at this point. I like what I'm paying, right? But I can feel like sources telling me that there is something better on their side, but I'm afraid to leave my current security. That fear is not something that I want to displace or remove. That fear is something I want to acknowledge and start asking. No, I don't even want to ask. I want to start feeling, well, what am I afraid about? What am I afraid of in this moment? And when I feel into it, rather than logically trying to explain it, what I'm afraid of is that I'm actually about to get something better. I'm about to be placed into a better home, but within that placement of a better home, something that I don't even want to say is going to make me feel more secure, because security is an illusion. None of us are secure. Personally, how I feel, like any of us that believe that we're secure in any environment, any moment of life, it is a false illusion that we've logically convinced ourselves to deal with. You feel me? It's no. Like, I find that most often we're more afraid of our light. We're more afraid of the fact that we can and will do better if we take a risk. If we look at fear in the eyes and say, you exist. So how can I embrace this fear with love and allow love to soothe those edges and take me into that wildness of adventure? So that, again, I can step back into witness consciousness of, okay, this human body of mine, Pernell Bobby, looks afraid. If I'm my spirit looking at myself, astral projecting, Pernell's afraid of taking this next risk to secure a new home, a different home, something different than what he is certain will work. And that allows me to then navigate through the fear and implement the logic of the masculine, implement the focus that it'll take to see this fear as something very real, but then to allow my feminine to integrate and radiate through me, and allow my feminine to destroy that fear itself with love. So when I say destroy, I'm thinking, I'm feeling like Shakti, the Kali goddess, Kali, to see my demons and realize that if I keep trying to cut the head off of my demon and it just grows 5 more heads, that I can swallow that fear itself whole and let it sit within me and let it operate through me. And that way I can allow that feminine to sharpen that fear. That again allows fear to push me from behind rather than to stand in front of me.
If I can add something to that.
Please.
When it comes to integrating fear, you mentioned from the feminine side and masculine. I think there's really 2 sides in it, in the sense that, you know what, let's say that's just that fear of not being enough towards going for something, if it's like a business or a partner, whatever it is. On one side, it's knowing that, you know what, you being in that situation at the bottom, you can find unconditional love there. And if you had to fail, you can also find conditional love there. So it's almost like for you to get into that situation, there's no self-attack, there's no judgments, because you're just perfectly enough, perfectly lovable. Feminine side, and then it goes like masculine side. But because you're perfectly lovable and enough, you also have the power of action and the ability to still go for it. And that would be like the other side of it. And I think that's either we tend to be people that, in a way, are good at having that power of action, but they still hate themselves, or people that are good at always going back to a place of acceptance, but in a way, they never actually go for the thing, and they never actually do the right things. And maybe that can be those 2 pillars. On one side, the feminine healing, and on the other side, the masculine healing.
Yes, sir. And I like how no matter which way you look at it, love is always the answer. Whether it's a love of embrace or a love of, a little bit more pressure and tension, it's always going to be love. And that acceptance, that love, that embrace is always the key. Because if you can use love to smooth the edges of fear, then I don't think that fear is fear anymore. I think if you can embrace fear, it's not fear anymore.
Exactly.
So I think in that way, love does cure fear. Not that fear was a problem, but rather an invitation for more love. Fear just shows you that, hey, there's some space here that you can inject some love into. In the same way that earlier I felt this nausea in my heart. And it wasn't that anything was missing, it was actually something that was returned to me. And because it was kind of like a little fresh wound, so to speak. Fuck me. That little fresh wound, so to speak.
That was gentle.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I'm so sorry that I'm squeezing in like that in the middle. I have actually a call I have to jump on in 1 minute. I didn't know.
Do you do the do.
So I have to, in a stubborn way, leave the show.
No, it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you. What you can do, y'all, is y'all can find his Instagram. It's linked in the description as well as at the top of the discussion. So if you want to just check him, you want to find his Instagram, I'll also post it in the comments. Fabrice, thank you. Enjoy yourself.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.
Love.
Yep.
So Neeraj, just as we get ready to wrap this up as well, but if we just take a moment to cover the light and the shadow of the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do the same thing I did for the masculine. I'm gonna read the light side of the feminine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read the left side of the feminine. So what I want you to do in a moment while you hear this, because I want you to let God speak through you again. Take a moment, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and just focus on your breath. And I'll read these keywords. The divine feminine. The light side of the divine feminine is intuitive, vulnerable, authentic, creative, compassionate, interdependent, open-minded, tenacious, sensual, instinctual, considerate, spontaneous, adaptable, has the will to love, nurturing, and empathetic. These are the light aspects of the divine feminine. As I shift over to the shadows. Shadow being victim. Huge. The victim. The victim. I feel like I had to say that 3 times. Being codependent. Insecure. The shadow of the divine feminine. Insecure. Being manipulative. Being passive. Being overly emotional. Acquiesce. Inauthentic. Cruel. Selfish. Jealous. And impatient. Oof, I just got hella dizzy saying those, man. So many people felt that dark side of the feminine. I heard, oh my God, so much flew through me. All right, I'm going to just give this back to Neeraj. Thank you for breathing through that. Let me tap one time on that because goddamn. Okay. So if you need me to repeat any of that, Neeraj, just let me know. But what flowed through you between the light and the shadow of the feminine?
It was different than the masculine because with the masculine, I only felt what resonated. And with the feminine, I felt every single one. And as it changed my energy field in my body, both the light and the dark. It's like I was able to take on the energy of each one of those labels. So I'm feeling acceptance here. Feeling the full spectrum. And whereas the masculine is a strive towards perfection, towards the light, so to speak, I feel like the feminine is already whole, and it needs both the light and the dark present simultaneously, all the time. And that acceptance is what creates the proper flow of energy and character so that we can have a full experience. That's why it embodies chaos and why it's so movable and changeable. It literally needs all of it. The feminine needs to be light and dark all the time. Where you could say that like masculine is the positive force. It's the giving force. It's the light. If the feminine is the darkness, the negative force, that means it contains the potential for dark and light simultaneously. Like the darkness is the bringer of the light. So it has to have both. But in and of itself, it contains everything. So to accept whatever is present as perfect as what it needs to be, that love and that acceptance is what creates a beautiful blossom for the best possibilities to happen. And beauty is associated with feminine because beauty is not something that is objective. Beauty is something that's experienced. That experience can't be boxed in, can't be labeled or caged. It must simply be witnessed and experienced as something perfect. And that's the whole spectrum.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you. As I come back in. We see in the comments, vulnerability is beautiful. Yeah, I know. I was at the same boat. I was like, let me pause. Let's pause. And while we pause, I want people in the chats to get engaged in the comments. Get engaged in the comments. You know, between what you heard between the light and the shadow of the feminine, between what you just heard with Neeraj and what he spoke up on. What came to you? Again, revelations. You know, things that weren't as clear before that might be clear now. What came to you? You know, for me, the biggest right now is inauthentic. I feel like this is one of the biggest of the shadow and the feminine side. Being inauthentic. Or in the light side, being authentic. We hear this word so often, so frequent. To be authentic, to being inauthentic. And it's the first thing that made me want to just take a moment to pause. There's two, actually. Being a victim, which I think works hand in hand with being inauthentic. If I take this from Neeraj's perspective, right? There's a grand story shifting from, I feel women and men both are recognizing what is the victim role that we've played as individuals. I think we're all starting to recognize it. I can say, even for me myself, like, I played the victim. 1000%. I've played the victim. I've played the martyr. You know, I played this role 1000%. And for me, that victimhood plays directly into when I was being inauthentic, to that full embodiment. But if I take Neeraj's perspective of, you know, the woman being absolutely whole, shifting back and forth from her shadow and her light and embracing both, I feel he's absolutely on point. And I needed to play victim in order to fully value what it meant for me to be and step up consistently and in flow between being inauthentic and authentic. It's almost as if I needed to feel the feelings of being a victim, playing victim, of playing selfishly, of manipulating others in order for me to actually receive the more compassionate, sensual, creative, and sexual energy that I'm able to express today. The vulnerability I'm able to express today. I needed to align with understanding what did it mean and why did I play manipulative narratives? Why did I take manipulative actions? Especially emotional manipulation, the manipulation of relationships. What did that teach me? And why is flowing through those extremes on the left and the right so necessary in order for me to integrate them the same? Where now I'm still manipulating every day. And all of us are. But for now, I'm going to skip all of us because we all are one. So I'm going to speak about myself. Gemini, again, it's Gemini moon today. It's a prime example. Gemini manipulates words like no tomorrow. But through the manipulation of words, when you talk in divinity, you can't talk so dualistically as good and bad. It doesn't work. Good and bad doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. So my point is, I know for a fact that I'm manipulating right now in this moment. I'm manipulating words in this moment to help us understand that as manipulation is a shadow of the divine feminine, hopefully in this moment I can paint the picture that does not make that shadow bad.
When we look at what shadow means, it's not like bad. It's just there's light shining on an object, and on the other side of that is a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like anything bad. It's just like what happens when there's not a light, or we could say consciousness on there. It's just how something moves in the absence of light, or the absence of directed consciousness, light being consciousness. It's just like on default mode. What happens on default mode? rather than when somebody takes control of it and takes it by the helm and directs it this way or that way. It ain't even so bad.
What did it say? Like, what is it? Something like every light casts a shadow.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the divine feminine in here. Hold up, Neeraj. I'm gonna give her a second. She's back
Let's
screen.
go.
I see you, Thelma. You can see her, Neeraj?
Nah.
Okay, here we go.
Hi.
Let's add her. Hello. I'm happy to have one of the divine feminines up in here. Absolutely.
I just woke up.
And we spoke earlier about the wildness, the wildness of the feminine. Part of being authentic, which is one of the lights of the feminine, is that people go to sleep and they wake up. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't. I literally said it earlier. It's like, you don't need to come on this link and do your makeup and do your hair and do this and do that. Like, you are the essence of what you are, and it doesn't matter what you externally look like. At the end of the day, like, for me, it's almost better if you came in here with baggy eyes, half your hair done, one earring, you forgot the other, because for me, like, it would show me that you're willing to embrace. I told my partner of the day, I think her hair is one of her greatest features. I think my partner, her hair is one of her greatest features. And what I told her today was like, taking the moment to give, and this part of the divine masculine, right? To give. And giving doesn't have to be a material thing. Giving a compliment. But the key with this is, not giving a compliment that's not true. That's never, this is where I find men do go wrong a lot. Like, to call a woman beautiful when they think that she's not beautiful in that moment, right? When she's doing something literally energetically ugly, to then call her beautiful. No. Because this is where the divine masculine is talking about accountability. And, if we're holding, our women as males, if we're holding our women accountable to something that we do not want to amplify, then that male is truly in his shadow in that moment. But beyond that, her hair was wild. It was not done. It looked like she just woke up, but there's this moment where that wildness, that chaos that she allowed, that chaos that she embraced, it was what made her beautiful. That she truly did not care externally what someone may have thought, because internally she knew how she felt. And that was a radiance that glows through her. And Fabrice had said that earlier. We had the guest on earlier, Fabrice. He said that earlier. That's the radiance glowing through her, not an external radiance that she created, that she presented to the world. But go ahead. How you feeling, Thelma? What's going on, girl?
Oh, I'm feeling good. And it's
No, you good.
It's Iman, by the way.
Iman. Thank you.
It means faith. It's my middle name. So I'm feeling good.
Okay, the ImanJourney. Okay, thank you for correcting me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me or sending the link, because I was like, I don't know what was going on. I just woke up. I literally was just in bed, and then I go to my messages, and I'm like, wait, he's online. I was like, Spirit, did you just wake me up to get on? So I was like, let me get on here right now. But I love what you talked about, just because of the fact that you've probably seen in several cases in the past, but I focus on inner child healing. I do inner child readings and whatnot. And like, I get everyone has their own really unique path or practice that they get to showcase. And, sometimes it's kind of like what you said. It's like sometimes we act out in a vibration, in a vibe that is not true to our character. It's like to our representative, who we present to the world, our social media tag. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And there's so many layers to us that I think we're like moving into a time where we really have to, which is why it goes so hard for inner child healing. We really have to like address our shit. You know what I'm saying? Before we can reach that, I'm living my best life, or it looks how I feel. So I think if we could just give ourselves, because I asked my mom one day, like years ago, I was like, Mom, what is love? And she was like, grace and understanding. And me and my mom have gone through back and forth. My father is a Libra moon, my mother's a Libra moon. My mother is a double Cancer, rising in Sun. My father's a Virgo, ascendant in Capricorn. So I've seen it all, like from the underground world to the light, high skyscrapers of healing without doing that work, that inner child work, that trauma work, you know what I'm saying? And saying, okay, let me look in the mirror, shadow self, and before I can get to my cute higher self that's trying to lead me, I have to like love this girl now. I have to love this guy now. You know what I'm saying? And I have to stop operating in a place where it's out of survival, but you can only stop operating out of that place that you know, you just become this person out of survival mode is by sitting with yourself and honestly, truly asking yourself, like, what does that raw, real, true me look like? What does she need? How can I water her, groom her, you know what I'm saying, and get her to that level? But I can't ignore where it's like all over the place. It's like your shit. You have to own your shit, and then you get to fertilize it and turn it into something amazing. So that's really all I have to say.
Beautiful. No. Thank you
And I
very
can
much.
add on whatever too.
No, thank you very much. What you got, Neeraj?
That was cool how you said own your shit and then turn it into fertilizer. That was funny.
I always say that.
Also, I'm a Libra moon also. I want to throw that in there.
So I guess we came through the check and balance shit. I'm a Libra as well.
Sure.
So you Libra moon too? You know, it's funny. I'm the Aries moon, so I'm like right on the opposite spectrum.
Yeah, you just summoned us.
He do be doing it. He do be in here calling shit in.
No, I be like, call it out. That's why I like your channel so much, because I feel like it's bringing an aspect that none of us are seeing. It's like we all talking about it to ourselves, but ain't nobody. You're the only person. There's certain people, and I think that's why I love Aries energy. Aries energy is like, listen, we're gonna talk about it, you know. So I respect that, because usually people, it's like what you said about the feminine energy or masculine, and I think for a while we've seen like the feminines as a reader and an artist, we've seen the feminines going hard for healing, but now it's kind of like some of the feminine energy has to learn, like, you have to sit down, you have to let the masculine come now and heal. You can't be so flighty that you're not giving him the opportunity to come in a safe space to heal, to work with you. So if you're looking for your divine masculine or you want him, it's like, I even had to deal with that and be like, am I even safe enough to be dealt with? And I think we're all at that place of like, what are your red flags? You need to look at them. Okay, if you want it to be a better place on earth, you need to change. You need to tap into your Aries energy and get real with yourself and be like, you know what? I'm the problem in these scenarios. This is why it keeps happening like this. And you need to forgive. When you were talking about the forgiveness class, that's why I reposted it, because my inner child course, that's where I start. It's forgiveness. The steps it is forgiveness, acceptance, adjusting, ownership, surrender, and then integration. But you can't even integrate your new life and be like, oh yeah, I'm over and done with the past. That's why some of us are still holding on to whatever happened at 5. You can't do that until you forgive, and you can't force or put a time frame on forgiveness. So I hope that you guys learn how to forgive yourself at least.
No, absolutely. You know what you said, that was, I think about 2 years ago. This is one of the hardest parts of my personal journey, and it was the fact that I feel like this happened a lot as an Aries. Okay, so this the flip side of Aryan energy, where I did not give enough time to grieve.
Yeah.
That was the major game changer for me in this masculine feminine journey, and gaining more clarity of self and ultimately understand how much I am of everyone else. I did not create the space to grieve. I whether it's like, okay, I'm in a relationship, you break up a relationship, it's like either one, getting into a relationship too soon, or two, when those times when I took years and years and years apart to myself, years and years and years to just not have sex at all, to just get to essentially relate and like have sex with my inner being. You know what I mean? Like have intercourse with my inner self. When that started happening, what came to me was, Pernell, you can't truly embody the both of these masculine feminine energies until you make space and accept what it means to grieve. That was the biggest part of engaging with the forgiveness journey. allowing myself to forgive myself. I didn't grieve. That was and so grieving as well, I've learned, is not a linear process. I remember God rest his mail, I dated a partner where multiple partners actually where their fathers died. Multiple partners where their fathers have died. And this attraction for me was reflecting and revealing how I myself did not create the space to grieve. That was the reflection from these relations, that I didn't give myself space to grieve. Go ahead.
No, I think that's spot on. And like I've been in the process where I've seen a lot of growth and results from me honestly taking that time. That's the whole point of the inner child work I've been talking about. It's like you're creating a space for your inner child. Your inner child is like your inner parents are the parts of your masculine feminine energy you would hope to one day come into. They're not your parents. They're like your savior, hero people inside of you that's been constantly telling you the masculine side is like, you might need to, hey, this is how you need to tend to your garden and keep it going. The feminine's like, all right, but I want to try out these new seeds, but I need to stay committed to the ones I got, you know? And I think if we don't give ourselves that time, what you said is powerful, because we will start to not only attract things that we're like, oh, I don't understand because we didn't sit with that trauma, but now we're going through karmic lessons and we're repeating stuff. Now we're not doing, now we need to understand how to clear our karmic debt. And so through forgiveness and that shadow work and grieving lost relationships, like you said, grieving lost parents, grieving lost the old you. Oh shoot, you could come out, you're like, why do I keep going through the same third party, same situation? It's like, you're the common denominator.
Yep.
You got to do something different so you can get some different results. But we always think, I'm so passionate. I'm a freaking fire sign. I'm a Leo, Cancer, Cuspy, so it's just a lot. But we think it's always like, oh, I gotta make this one change externally, and then that's it. It's like, no, a lot of times it's like one little thing you could just sit with, breathe, and process, and boom, now you're like literally doing that internal work reveals a whole new world. You know what I'm saying?
I want everybody to type that. Shout out to Iman. Okay, I want everybody to just type in the chat, I am the common denominator. This is where the masculine, this is where the divine masculine, we spoke the key words, and I'm going to say them again now that we have Iman on here, because I know she didn't hear it the first time. I'm going to say them in a little bit quicker than the last time, just so she can hear this and align with it as well and get on the same frequency with us, because she came in late, right? She came straight from the wake up.
I don't know what he's doing.
For now, I want everybody to in here type, I am the common denominator. And this is leading into divine masculine, aka accountability, right? So that's one of the ones, right? On the light side of the masculine, right? We have being mindful, accountable, keyword, integrity, organized, merciful, independent, non-judgmental, courageous, sexual, intellectual, impartial, okay? Strategic, grounded, will to power, having the will to power, okay? The sun sign, the sun, power, assertive and focused, okay? So the reason I say that is like, to start on the light side of that, we need to be able to take a moment to focus, because as Neeraj explained earlier, the divine feminine in its essence is complete when you talk about the etheric presence and potential realities, the potential energy it has to create anything. Yet it is pure consciousness, and pure consciousness has no physical form. So in order for us to bring it into form, we need the masculine within us to focus. And part of the focus is to realize I am the common denominator. So what does that mean? We must focus on the common denominator. We must focus on I am the common denominator. Okay, what is common about me? What do I keep blaming? If we look at the shadow of the divine feminine, playing victim, playing martyr, okay? Keep dating people that we know we're going to have the same outcome. Keep investing our money in ways that we know is going to keep bleeding out of our pockets, right? Where do we need to focus as for the common denominator within us? And that's major, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now I'm going to read the shadow of the divine masculine. The shadow of the divine masculine.
I love that you did that, because that is, okay, Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. I got you. And for Iman, I want you to try it. We did this earlier. For this moment, listen to this with your eyes closed, and then let source speak through you. If you feel comfortable, listen to this with your eyes closed. I want you to relax your jaw, everybody in the chat. Let's slow the tempo. Let's switch the pace. And let's focus on the common denominator. And let's listen with presence, pure conscious presence. And let source take over. Let source speak through us as the vessel. The shadow, divine masculine, being the persecutor, being coldly detached, being controlling, being egotistical, being aggressive, being emotionally numb, being dominant, being abusive, being ruthless, being angry, being intimidated, and being reckless. So Iman, what has come through you around the divine masculine or the divine light, the shadow or the light, what's come through you to share with the audience?
I think right now we really need to thank you for making me breathe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And can I switch this? Can we start the sentence with I feel?
I feel right now a good thing that we could be doing collectively is breathing, first and foremost. We cannot be like, oh, I'm spiritual, I know this, I know that. And it's like the first way we could get in touch, literally in touch with each other on a soul level, it is through breath work. I can't hear your truth as a divine masculine if I am on 10. I'm aware that I can get on 10 like that too. But I can't really serve and submit and be there as a support system, come into the container that the masculine has in store for us for the purpose of the connection without truly hearing you, without truly listening. So breath work and listening to each other on a deeper level. I'm not talking about like, oh, my ego, like, yeah, like listen to each other, listen to me. And even for the feminines, it's no excuse. Your behavior is no excuse. If you have certain behaviors, you have to address these things. It's not, oh, the masculine, the karmic, this. You are your common denominator. If common denominator, whatever.
I don't even know how to say it. Denominator.
Yes. Like even when I think about the karmic and twin flame DM stuff, you know what I had to realize, and to get off that whole journey, I had to realize I'm the common dynamic. I'm creating the karmic into a bigger issue. I'm allowing this karmic energy to turn into a bigger issue, to have power now over my spiritual connection and what I would like to create with someone, by not realizing what is this person showing me that I'm doing myself. I'm just me, shout out to Dolo, just me allowing this force to exist and not sit with oneself and say, why am I okay with this? You know, why am I letting this person just react and respond? Why am I just reacting and responding? Why am I not listening? It's like we're saying the same things over and over, I guess, in the spiritual world community, but we are not really hearing each other. We're just speaking over one of each other, really wanting to be
Neeraj, why do you think that's true?
I think at this point, you scream. It's like two types of fears. There's one fear that protects you from real life death scenarios, something that's threatening. And then there's one that you're just holding back, you know? So I think we've all kind of we've been the traumatized little kids screaming to the top of our lungs, like, I want to heal, but you did this, mom, and you did that, and you da. And now when we're getting with real divine masculines, feminines, other children of God that are not here to hurt us, but have come from some similar pain for their own growth, we're not hearing each other. We're misplacing the message from spirit.
Mm.
We're like attacking this person, but then saying we're divine healers. That makes no sense.
It's an external projection.
Yeah.
Neeraj, give me what you got. I can feel it. I feel you.
Yeah, I can feel it.
you. Go ahead. Spill it.
You cannot be in your power and be a victim at the same time.
Nope.
That's really what's just been coming out for a minute. Is that you can't make a decision to be your best self and to also have some grudges. You can't do that. So that requires that forgiveness and the acceptance first. And after that, then you can move in your power. But as long as you got some victimhood inside of you, you'll never let yourself move into your power. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And at some point, it's going to catch up with you.
I can fully attest to that. Like, I've been there 1,000%. And you know what? Not only have I been there, but sometimes I shift back into that frequency.
I was just about to talk about that.
Sometimes I shift back into that frequency. No matter what people see from me externally on this platform or whatever way y'all see me, there are always the moments, and Neeraj spoke about this with the divine feminine, the shadow and the light, that we must, in a sense, flow through back and forth that frequency. This is why I've been coming to the full understanding, and this has been given to me. This is less of a logical thought process that we're not healing. Nothing about us as human beings, we're not healing. There's nothing to heal. We're not broken. There's nothing to heal. We're not broken. It is just the lack of embrace, the lack of acceptance that I feel that is more detrimental. And when I say lack of acceptance, I'm saying that I do not to try to claim that I've healed. The most annoying thing, if I'm being honest, is anyone that says I am healed, because the one that claims this is creating more division between, well, if you're healed, you're embracing this ironic duality of someone else outside of you is not healed, or that they're still broken. And it's like, it's the same thing with I'm woke or you sleep. This discussion must cease. There is no one more woke or more asleep than anyone, because as we continue to wake up, you get closer to realizing that we're all forever asleep. Period. There's no end point. There's no end point. Like, there's no
woke
point
until you got.
I keep hearing acknowledgement. Like, we have to acknowledge each other and where we're at on our phase and on our journey. But we can't, yeah.
That's how you know you're really healed. Healed is when you stop looking at other people with division.
That's what I was talking about with the karmic. People are like, oh, the karmic, oh, this person, oh, that person. And it's like everything. You know what I like to say a lot of times about for tarot readers, and some of my tarot readers, you might come at me for this, but you're creating the reading. The reading's not creating you. So if you keep picking up on the same energy, it's not the karmic and oh, they're just so toxic. You're adding to that storyline. You're a divine feminine. You could just cast that out and get to the mission.
You said something, and we're gonna answer Souls of the Wind Tarot. Okay, that's funny that tarot reader is on here. We're gonna answer the question. I
had to say it for us.
No.
We can free ourselves.
It's totally understandable. It's totally understandable. One thing I feel like I needed to say in the moment, there was, when I was in this space of force, especially in modalities of spirituality, I was trying to force myself to read tarot as a part of my internet persona. And life kept frustrating me until finally this alignment, this voice came and was like, this is a sacred practice. It's not, and I can only speak for myself in the moment. There's no judgment or criticism to anybody outside me. But when I came to the realization for myself that this is a sacred practice, and my partner has said this on one of these days, right? And she was just like, this is a sacred practice. And that's when God finally got through to me at that moment. It's like, this is a sacred practice. And I say that to say, again, whoever's reading tarot, not reading tarot, online, offline, doesn't matter to me at this point. It's more about where was I at and this personal understanding of This is a sacred practice. And you don't share sacredness with anything, anybody, anytime, all the time, because we dilute the sacred practice. No one's really having sex on the internet and claiming to be doing tantra. You know what I'm saying? That's a sacred practice. That's a sacred practice. So again, I got nothing against. I'm not trying to criticize or anybody. It's just what came to me of why was I frustrated about this process of reading tarot or they're all sitting right there. They sit on my altar. They're right there behind me. I got a dragon deck. I have an angel deck. I have an animal deck. I have an elemental deck. I have an android, like a freaking comedic deck, right? They're all right there. But the irony is, when I came to the understanding, I have not touched those cards for months. But I know very clearly that when it's time, they will fall. They will wiggle. They will brighten up. They will tell me, hey, it's time. Touch me. Play with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, create with me. Co-create with me. Hey, I have a message for you. The time will come. But I had to realize, like, I'm using tarot as an example, but I'm looking at it from a place of sacred practices. Sacred practices, whether it's tantra, whether it's tarot, whether it's listening. Listening to me is a sacred practice. It takes time to listen. It takes energy to listen. It takes presence to listen. Listening to me is an art form. It is a sacred practice to listen. It is a sacred practice to speak and allow God to speak through us. That's a sacred practice. And if I look, and I've said this multiple times over and over the last couple of months, y'all don't see me going live as frequent. Because it's like, if God's not telling me to say something, I got nothing to say anymore.
Right.
And I pause.
Bringing us back into masculine and feminine, I'd love to get both y'all's opinions on how to make love with yourself, with your internal masculine and feminine. Because Pernell, you talking about how you took a bunch of years of celibacy to start to listen and have sex with yourself. And then that right there, it caught my attention. It's like, that's a missing link in my life right now. Because I have that hella down when it comes to my mental sphere, but there's your emotional, physical, energetic spheres too. So it's I'd like to open up that discussion. But how to make that merger with your internal masculine and feminine, have that dynamic, that sexual interplay within yourself, so that you can exchange and then become one, and then shift from this side to that side. Do the dance.
I was.
No, go.
Iman, I want to hold that thought. I want you to speak on this because I feel really called in this moment as well right now. I feel super called. For me, it was to recognize my reactive behaviors and responses. That was the start. To recognize that I was in a constant and eternal loop. At least that's what I perceived, that I was in this eternal loop of reacting. And when I came aware of that, it hurt. It hurt because I started thinking of all the people that I potentially hurt in my reactive state. And I realized how much I was wounding myself. And so that is what allowed me to, when the call came, I swear to God, God literally came to me and was like, I was in Colombia at the time. This is post-quarantine. I was living in quarantine in Colombia. And, I left, went to Mexico, I came back to Colombia. And God was like, you need to go and see your father. God is like, you need to go see your father. And for me, that felt like it was the call was, you need to go get in touch with your masculine energy. And that was the first time I recognized that I was literally, primarily in my feminine energy, but I had no clue. So that within itself was, and it was already out of alignment. And it was you need to, and so what I started understanding is how much feminine energy is within me and just was naturally flowing on the regular. And, to answer your question of how to go have sex and relate interpersonally and interdependently with myself, it came down to, Pernell, you have such a etheric and feminine flow of source that has no container, because I was not in tune with my masculine. I had no container. So I had all of this wildness that I was just splurging and I was just pumping it out for a little bit. Give me a moment, y'all. I was just pumping it out. It was everywhere. I mean, I was just throwing darts of love and hate and grief and lack of forgiveness and, you know, impartial forgiveness and just too much of everything. I was everything and nothing. And I was publicly throwing this form everywhere. I was over emoting. I was manipulating, right? You know, I was being inauthentic. And part of what I mean by being inauthentic in this point was I was not in tune with my masculine form. So my feminine was so powerful within me as a male that it kept challenging my masculine to step up, to focus, to hone the vision, to use strategy and logic with purpose, with direction, with intention. And so the message was, go see your father. Okay. Little did I know, I thought I was going to be there for weeks. Little did I know I was now living with him for 5 months. Had no idea. And in that process, I recognized my father. And in my father, I recognized myself. And as I saw myself through a lens where I finally stopped being able to blame my mother or I didn't even really blame my father, quite frankly. I put a lot of blame on my mother. That's just the truth. But I was more in touch with her. And again, I was more in touch with my feminine as a part of it. So when I got in touch with the form, I started realizing that my father's sacrifice was imperative to the mission, to the family dynamic, to the generational development of relating interdependently with myself. And so through this, I came into form. I started putting that feminine flow, that limitless energy into form. And that ultimately showed me that I needed to sit with myself. And I did in Arkansas with a population of 4,000 people, completely off the internet, no one to meet, nowhere to go. There was one road in the entire town. One road. Do you know what it's like to live in a town where there's one road? Just bored. And I began to make love with that boredness. I began to allow myself to be bored. And through that boredness, I began to realize how cool I was. I began to become my best friend all over again. And I remembered what it meant to be in Aries, a masculine energy. I remembered exactly what it meant to be alone. I remember what it meant to be powerful enough to separate myself from God in order to align on my identity, to fight for my independence, to ultimately release my identity all over again. And through that, I was able to accept what it meant to be formless and to add shape to that form and to go into the formlessness again and to add shape it again. And then within that entire process, to embrace what it meant to be dark, to be in the darkness. And by being in the darkness, just to accept not knowing where the hell I'm going. To stop forcing a direction because I didn't have a direction, because I didn't understand my purpose. And through all of that, I was alone. And through that, I began to reintegrate and actually begin to masturbate with myself. And then eventually the masturbation became less physical and it just became a mental and emotional masturbation with myself. And more, the physical reality mattered less and less and less. And that allowed me to become my own best friend all over again, alone, by myself. And what I didn't understand fully then was that the masculine was always present. I just didn't recognize it. My feminine was always present. I just didn't recognize it because I wasn't listening. Because listening is a sacred art. It is a sacred practice to listen to yourself, to listen to myself. And when I began to listen to myself, my intuition showed me that we've always been there. My guide showed me we've been just waiting for you to hear the call. We've been waiting for you to shut the hell up. We've been waiting for you to allow yourself to be bored. Because through that boredom, I was able to address their simple realities. That all I needed to do was be present with my own consciousness. And within that, the blaming stopped and the empowerment began.
That was beautiful. I was crying. I was
Even that, for myself, you know, to allow myself to write again. And through that writing, that is some of my most ultimate forms of expression. I say this so much, a lot, writing, communication, that's my love language. And so to allow myself to write again, and through the writing, to cry, to allow myself to speak poems and not share with anyone in the world, to just put on a video, record myself speaking a slam poetry with no pressure to post it. No pressure to post it, and all the pressure to not post it, all the pressure to maintain it, to allow those files to accumulate and share with absolutely no one but myself. To go back and listen to old poetries that I've done 15, 10 years ago and embrace that, wow, I really am fucking amazing. And that allowed me to just embrace that, like, I'm the shit. And when I came to that understanding, I began to again release that all over again. And all of this happened without a single camera on me. Without a single camera. With no caffeine in the body. No extra stimulation. Just allow myself to be. Taking vacations that no one know about. I just got back from a 4-day, 5-day vacation. Baby, what's going on? Came back from a 4-day, 5-day vacation, and you know how much got posted? 0. You saw the flight coming in, and you saw the flight going out. And that was it. I even made a collage of my entire time frame there. But you know who saw that? No one but my partner. And I took a moment to even think about posting it, and I was like, this is for us. The world doesn't need this part of me. The world doesn't need to see how cool my life is. The world doesn't need to see how I live. Unless God says, show them. Show them this particular aspect. Show them this part. And when I begin to start listening to that, this sacred art of listening, when I allow myself to be bored enough to listen, you have to allow yourself to be bored. I started allowing myself to take naps. I started allowing myself to lay in bed with no pressure to perform. And through that, I started realizing it was that simplicity of the world does not need to see every single aspect of the day-to-day. And in fact, they need to see less. In fact, I need to shut up more. And in fact, I need to let my guests speak more. And allow them to, and if anything, help guide them to allowing source to speak through them rather than, again, their identity. To essentially take those lessons of being alone, being still, being alone, being still, being alone, being still on repeat, playing with myself to then create a platform and a sacred space so that y'all can let God speak to you, source speak to you, spirit speak to you. And I digress.
You kept it sacred. Yeah. It's the biggest word I kept hearing when you was talking about that.
Yeah. So let's take a breath. And what I want to say is, any closing thoughts? I want y'all to align with closing thoughts. We're at about 2.5 hours in this particular transmission. I want you to take a breath with me. And through that, Neeraj and Iman, I want you to let God speak through you on what is the message from one male figure, one female figure, and us getting back into the sacredness of combining the two, being interdependent on each other. All right, here's what I want to do. I want to have you just sit up straight so we could just align our spine. All right, enhance that connection, aligning the spine. All right, and I want you to just relax your shoulders down and back. Open your chest. As I open my chest, I'm opening my chest, I'm opening my heart. All right, and my guests are backstage right now. I'm opening my chest, I'm opening my heart. As I relax my jaw down, we're looking to just connect the left and the right, the feminine and the masculine. I'm relaxing my chest, and now I want everyone on here to notice the shift in my voice. As we allow that sound to cleanse the space and connect us. And as we take this moment, I want you to imagine your mind becoming a feather, a nice, bright, radiant feather, floating through the sky, drifting, aimless, directionless, formless. As we expand our belly nice and soft, including the audience, including those on replay. And very slowly, without even allowing myself to hear my own breath, I inhale for 7 seconds, slow 7, very quiet, very gentle, very compassionate. And as I allow the air to escape without exhaling, just let it go. Notice my jaw and the tension of my teeth releasing. Softly, gently, compassionately. My shoulders begin to relieve tension as well. My eyes get heavy. My ears begin to melt deep into the core of my being. My heart begins to melt deep into the core of my being as I expand my belly. And I take a softer inhale, noticing it getting quieter and quieter, not only within my mind, but within my heart. As my soul begins to come through me, I inhale up to the third eye. I go beyond the third eye, and that air that I inhale bursts out through the top of my crown. And as I begin to exhale from above, God comes back through me as a pillar of golden light, slowly sinking my exhale deep into the core of my being. And I quote, God, what's the message? Iman, what's the message? The closing revelation of today.
Not heal if you're unwilling to sit with yourself.
You cannot heal if you're unwilling.
Just unwilling to sit with yourself, unwilling to look at yourself in the mirror, in others, and truly accept the truth that is reflecting back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And notice how when we take that breath, the message gets shorter and shorter. There's not much explaining necessary. Beautiful. Thank you, Iman. Neeraj, let God flow through you. What's the message?
Forgive yourself, my son.
Mm,
You have never gone anywhere.
let that sink. Forgive yourself, my son. You have never gone anywhere. Let that sound clear you and cleanse you. And you know, the message that's coming through me is this last one. It's actually one about helping us all collectively, karmically cleanse. And okay, so I got home last night, and I had this live in the morning, and I had my cat, and you know, he's like he missed playing and yada yada yada, and I couldn't go to sleep. You know, I got home by about 1 in the morning, and I knew I had this live at 10, but I couldn't sleep because again, the message was clear, and it's here for y'all now, but it comes through example. And the message is: take in every room, pour a cup of water, and place a cup of water in every room with pink salt in the water. And start off with your left hand, your feminine hand, your destructive hand, and go counterclockwise over the water Let me do this for a second. Go counterclockwise over the water. All right. Go counterclockwise over the water. And this will deprogram any energies and frequencies in the room that do not work within the alignment of who you are and who you're becoming. The salt, preferably pink salt, will work as a cleansing agent that'll amplify the water itself. The water will take the energy. The water can absorb anger, it can absorb hate, it can absorb anything malfunctioning. Okay? And it also can absorb love. And that's where we're going to go clockwise. We're going to program this clockwise to absorb love, to absorb the frequencies of authenticity, to absorb the frequency and the will to power, to absorb the frequencies and the will to grieve and forgive, to absorb the powers and the frequencies that allow us more willing to claim our power, the will to love. And that's what you'll do clockwise. Now, me speaking life to this water itself is a part of what the energies that will maintain and hold. This is step one, okay? And I recommend you, and I did this in 2 of my biggest rooms last night. It took me extra time. I didn't really go to bed till like 2:30 in the morning, but it was like, it was necessary. Second, if you have a bell, if you have a shaker, I carry this on me. Sound is one of the most purifying forms of cleansing because entities cannot stand sound. Frequencies out of alignment cannot stand sound. Entities that attach onto you at a soul level, they cannot stay when you ring that bell. Even the cat going meow, I know very clearly what's happening. I know very clearly what's happening. This is the internet. Things try to come through all the time. Don't put focus. Okay? This is one of my biggest lessons. This is coming through me. Do not put focus. Do not put focus. Do not put focus on the negative energies trying to latch on and attach to you. Okay? Put the focus on what you can do. What you can do is you can get a cup of water, you can put some pink salt in it, and you can do what we just said. Deprogram and reprogram. What you can do is you can go ahead and hit every room. You feel like your throat is blocked, okay? You can let those sounds radiate through the blood. You feel like your heart is struggling to forgive, okay? You can go ahead and let those frequencies cleanse out and get you at a wavelength that, you know, can't be physically seen by the human eye. It is Pisces season. This is a beautiful time to release and surrender karma in a loving and gentle way. This is not Scorpio season. We do not need to purge that. We do not need to force that out. We do not need to go through some wild life and death. It's already done. It's just now about acknowledging that it's done. Okay, great. And lastly, I mean, you could just sage your home. I mean, that always works too. Like, so you could just get the sage. But that's what came through for me. That's what came through for me. Like, we have a beautiful chance to surrender our karma right now in a very gentle manner. But we can support ourselves in the physical reality because remember, Pisces needs Virgo. And Virgo says, here's how we cleanse in the physical. And Pisces will do the rest that we can't even see in the metaphysical. And that's the message I got. Absolutely. So I want to say thank you both. Iman for coming in last minute. Neeraj for planning this with me weeks and weeks and weeks. We planned this weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but life just let it happen now. And Fabrice, you know, he came on earlier in the channel. Thank you as well. Thank y'all for your closing messages. This is honestly a beautiful transmission. And, you know, I love you. I love you. Truly, 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 truly. I know you just felt my heart when I said it too. I felt my heart tingling. I feel my heart tingling. Let that tingle, you know, let that tingle just vibrate through us. I love you. I'll see y'all soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this ends the transmission. This is your AstroShaman Pernell Bobby. We are generating a world of harmony, leveraging human-designed astrology. And I had to actually make the shift recently. We are generating an economy of harmony. Okay, an economy of harmony. We're truly coming back together. Okay, truly coming back together. Leveraging human design astrology. This Sunday coming up, the members are meeting again. If you're looking to learn a deeper insight on, we're actually going to do Saturn. So we're talking karma. We're going to do Saturn on this Sunday and all the zodiac signs relating to Saturn and dive in deeper into what is our common missions, what is a Saturn return at a level that I've never spoken, at least not publicly. And that's going to be part of where we really dip into Saturn in Pisces. Beyond that, as well as how does human design link into that? Because human design and astrology do not separate, all right? They don't separate. They're the same thing from different perspectives. So I'm going to help you understand what gates are aligned in human design, because that allows us to understand how can we apply astrology in a mechanical fashion, okay? We're still human beings. It doesn't matter how spiritual you are. It doesn't matter if you understand your spirit or soul. We're in a human body. We're living a human experience. So human design is one of the ways I'm able to help you understand the physical mechanics of this. If you're interested, you'll be able to see that in the link in the bio. All right. I see Vanessa can't wait for that. Super awesome. So thank you for the 13, 14 members. Shout out to y'all personally that's already in the membership at this point. The community has been forming. I really been loving them, writing prompts. All right. Extra PDFs on the back end. All that has been received. And I just want to say thank you all for trusting me in this process. Thank you to our special guest. I'm going to drop Iman and her IG link in the description in the chat. I have the other tools already up, but I'll drop hers as well. And I just want to say thank you all. Ciao.
Peace.
Love.